Welcome to Dental Success Beyond Chairside, the podcast that is dedicated to revolutionising the way dental professionals succeed beyond the dental chair. Join us for a unique blend of insightful interviews with industry experts and valuable tidbits of information to help you thrive in your dental specialist practice. In each 20-minute episode, we'll delve into a variety of topics, including HR, marketing, innovative techniques and systems, and AI, to help you transform your practice and unlock its full potential. Whether you're a dentist, specialist, or oral health therapist looking to enhance your practice, this podcast is your go-to resource for professional, personal, and profitable success. Get ready to go beyond the dental chair and discover what lies ahead in your practice journey with Dental Success Beyond Chairside. Hello everyone and welcome to Dental Success Beyond Chairside. Today I welcome Ross Pritchard, former dentist, dog owner, windsurfer, often signs his emails to me as slave and secretary, but also my husband, Ross Pritchard.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Really?
No.
Essentially, a lot of people know our story, that Ross was a dentist, he bought his own practice, and I became involved in early 2000. But Ross, I just want to talk about your story and how it was when you first graduated and then obviously worked in private and public practice and bought your own practice. How was it in the beginning with you owning your own practice?
Well, initially, the business side of things is just a non-issue. You've graduated from dental school and you're out there to save the world, and don't really think about the business side of it, and all your peers are driving around in fancy cars, so how hard can it be? So to start with, no, not a lot of thought went into the business side of things.
Okay, so you bought your business in 1993, in December 1993. And you built it up. You only had, I think, one staff member working for you, or two maybe, I can't remember.
Yeah.
And then what was it like when you first started actually owning your own business?
Well, I didn't have a fancy car. That didn't work. Well, yeah, once again, it was a situation where there were too many other things going on with building up patients and trying to do the right thing and getting your head around treating people properly and so on. The business side of things was really put at the back burner, and it wasn't too much later on down the road where you start to think, hang on, I'm working really, really hard for bugger all. Then it starts to come into focus a bit more.
Clinically, you were setting yourself up for success, but you didn't even think about the background with the business. And through you being a good clinician, you got lots of patients coming in. Then when you got lots of patients, you got more team members. Then did you feel like you were juggling multiple hats? You're an owner, a manager, and a practitioner?
Yeah, for sure. But it all comes in slowly and incrementally. It just sneaks up on you a bit, and you don't really notice it for a while until all of a sudden it's like, holy dooly, I've got a lot of balls to juggle here. And I'm not really enjoying this part of it. I really just want to do the teeth part of it, the patient care. This worrying about staff and all their issues and stuff like that, it's not really my thing.
You became a bit overwhelmed, and really what you wanted to do with owning your own practice was to practice dentistry, is that right?
Yeah. I know there's lots of business manuals that sort of say, you've got to work on your business rather than in your business, but to be honest, I wanted to work in the business, and working on the business wasn't really a priority for me.
Right. I find now going into practices that a lot of people feel like you, Ross, it's just like, yeah, I'm going to own a practice. And then as it grows, which it naturally does because you are all good clinicians, and then it becomes a bit overwhelming with juggling those multiple hats. You might say this was a negative, but Ross got me to be the bookkeeper. We had our first child back in December 1999, and in January 2000, he said to me, congratulations, you've got a bookkeeper job. I didn't really have much to do with the business at that time. I was a manager in banking and finance, and I was on maternity leave. I had a look at the books, and I had a little bit of a heart attack actually about how is Ross going to look after us? I went in there and had a look at things, and then obviously found out how Ross was feeling. I said to him, we've got to do a plan. He said, you can do the plan. And I thought, well, yes, I can do the plan because I've got a commerce degree.
There's no point in both of us doing the plan.
And I thought, I'm not doing the plan.
You do the plan.
I'm not doing the plan.
Why not do the plan?
You will not even listen to me. So I thought, I'm not doing the plan. So we've got a coach in to do a plan. And then we started systemising the business. Can you talk about that point in time when we got him in to help us? And he was with us for a year, I think.
Yeah.
And what happened after that, or during and after that time?
Okay. To start with, I wasn't too busy to do yet more stuff. It's like, I haven't got time to do a plan. I haven't got time to enact a plan. This is just all pain. So, yes, it took some prodding to move it along. But once we started sitting down, and I think it was probably a couple of months before I started to think at all that this might be helpful. It seemed to be a lot of fluff, really, to start with. But when we got there and got the systems in place, and of course, there's a bit of a cultural shift at work because you're now systemising it. And as a practitioner, I got pretty busy and abdicated a lot of the responsibility of running the place to staff. Well, some of them were a little miffed that I might now come back in and actually have something to do with running the place. So,
can I just interrupt there? So at that time, the staff was running it and doing what they wanted to do and sort of dictating a little bit to you. Is that right?
Look, when you're married, you're used to the girls telling you what to do. So, it was just same, but nothing. Yes, they were. It sort of gets to the point when they're telling you when you can have your holidays, it gets a little bit like, okay, perhaps I've just abdicated a little too much here.
Wow. I have to say, when I started the specialist practice, that was the same thing there as well. The girls were telling my boss when he had to take holidays so they could take holidays then as well. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. From there, as the systems evolved and because I was involved in creating those systems, it's like, okay, I'm on board with all this. This makes sense as it works through. We started implementing those systems. It caused a bit of mischief with the staff, as I said. But once you get through that and everyone's playing off the same set of sheets, I don't want to use the songbook analogy, but everyone's playing the same one, things start to get easier and it gets easier to track down where things are going wrong, if they are. Of course, it didn't happen to me. Where things are going wrong, and you can sheet that back to, okay, we now have to look at this system, this process, because we thought it was going to work, but it didn't. What do we need to change about this process? The young kid from McDonald's can come in and run this and doesn't need to have a business degree to figure it out. It all should just be boom, 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 job's done.
Excellent. How did that make you feel once that was all systemised?
It's a load off, for sure. It's much easier. It takes several of the balls that you're juggling in the air. It takes several of them out of the game because it just becomes one issue. You just sit down with your manager, whoever it might be. She's the one that's had a look at all the systems and say, okay, this one's not working and this one's not working. Let's sort them out. Away we go. So it's a process of putting the system in place, run it, see what's wrong, another iteration of that, and just keep refine and reiterate until you get to the point. That's what we want to do. That works.
And that works.
That works.
Excellent. One of the systems that Ross and I personally set up from a business perspective was to, because quite often when in the early days when we were doing the setting up of the plan, we'd talk about things over dinner, when we were washing the dishes. It was coming into our everyday lives because we were just talking about the business. And this coach, he was fantastic. He said, once we move down the track, you guys need to have a business meeting once a month. I was the business manager for our practice. I worked from home. We got an office manager in the office. She was there running the business, the day-to-day things. Ross was the practicing dentist there. That's all he was doing was dentistry. We had this meeting once a month. At this meeting, and again, there was iterations upon iterations about what was going to work, about what we monitored. We used to track. I used to do a cash flow forecast. We used to do a budget because we knew the goals we wanted to achieve. We wanted to set up another practice. We wanted to expand. Ross wanted all these little toys to play with at the practice as well. We had to build that into understanding what we needed. And we built this business meeting that we had once a month. We had it on the second Friday after the end of month because then we could look at the previous month, like that month before. We'd have it at 1:00 in the afternoon because in the early days, our kids were still having sleeps in the afternoon, so that was an ideal time because we just have it at our table here at home. It was at 1 o'clock, and the first few meetings went for hours. The coach was there to be with us, so we had the fights, disagreements, and he was there to placate everything. And then over time we had them, and then they sort of ran for an hour. It was very set in what we did. We had an agenda, we had minutes, we had a to-do, we monitored everything. It was a very strategic. So we looked at the strategic way of doing things for the practice, and then the manager looked at the day-to-day things of doing the practice. I think a lot of people know through me and knowing me and listening to me is that Ross obviously had a nervous breakdown in 2012, and we did sell our practices in 2015. We had sickness and accident insurance, and they started paying, and then they stopped. They stopped because we wanted to attend a meeting with an accountant, and they didn't want us to attend a meeting with anybody. They just wanted us to attend a meeting, the two of us, but we felt vulnerable, so we didn't want to do that. So they just stopped paying. At that time, it was very difficult because obviously, I was working independently, but, obviously income, when we sold the practices, a lot of that went into super. We couldn't access it. So it was a very scary time. We ended up going through legal action, and we went through mediation. And at mediation, it was interesting, wasn't it, Rossi, with what happened?
The whole process was interesting, for sure. At mediation, the insurance company was saying that
they were saying that Ross wasn't just a dentist, he was a manager. He shouldn't get paid anything because he would have been able to manage the practice. Even though he was covered under his insurance as a dentist, they were saying that part of his work was as a manager.
Yeah, and because we had all those meeting notes and agendas and everything going back for a couple of years by that stage.
Oh my gosh, it was like
4 or 5 years?
No. Early 2000s, so it was for 12.
Oh, yeah, of course. We could put it on the table that we actually have documented evidence that this is how the practice runs, and that being a manager is not one of my core duties. And it was sort of, that thing was sort of
I couldn't believe it.
The tipping point, wasn't it?
It was just like we had the lawyer, the barrister in the room when we were in mediation, the insurance company was in the other room. He looks at me and he just goes, so you've got everything recorded? It's like, well, yes, because it's very important for us to know what's happening, where we need to go, who needs to do what. We had minutes of the meeting, when it was open, when it was closed, who was doing what. And I just remember the lawyer, she just went, oh, and then she just left him, and he just grabbed the papers and he just goes, right, and he just left. And then it was just like, aren't you going? And she goes, no, everything's fine. And I was just like, wow. So I was talking to Greg Gunther. In fact, he's on the first podcast that we've got, if you want to listen to him. He talks about systems, and he talks about it being IP and having those systems that Ross said. Anybody can come in, a kid from McDonald's that can follow those systems. That adds value when you're actually selling your practice. By setting these things up and systemizing everything, it can actually add value to you when you sell your practice. When we did sell our practices, we had those systems in place. With new owners, maybe they don't like to follow exactly the same, but, the base was there. You wanted to talk about something too.
The meetings that we had.
Yes.
There were two things about those that really stood out, I think. One is that I can't say that I went to them and was like, yay, we're having another meeting. But what they did do is make me accountable for things happening in the practice. So stuff that I would say previously just handball it to someone else or just ignore. I had to sit down and say to Michelle, actually, that's not real great, and sort of talk about how we were going to deal with those. The second one I think was even more important is because we got to the point where the practice was starting to cheese me off a bit, any discussion from Michelle would come at the dinner table, whatever, at just the worst time. It's like, I'm not in a headspace for dealing with this. You tend to be a bit short. You've used up all your
niceness.
You've used up all your niceness at work. It's wifey's turn to cop the other end. you're not nice, and so it causes friction, causes problems. Having a dedicated meeting time meant that all those other times, I wasn't going to come home from work and Michelle wasn't going to get in my ear and cheese me off about whatever. I knew it was going to happen on Friday afternoon, once a month, and I could deal with that. The rest of the time, we were just going to be happy families because, like, raising 2 kids is a piece of cake. That was the 2 things I want to talk about.
That's right. And that's another thing I wanted to talk about is when we started setting up these, and Ross was talking about the staff being miffed, we did have a turnover of staff. We had people leave. Not 100%, but quite a lot leave. And then we engaged people who were on the same page with us, who had the same values as us. We set up those foundations for success with a business mission and everything through, and our purpose and our philosophy and what we wanted to do and what to achieve. We set that up through that base plan. And that was communicated when we got new team members on. Then those new team members came on, and what was the transition and the transformation there, Ross, with the team that we had? And then when you sold the practices?
Not quite sure what you want to know, but
they're all the same. We had them for over a decade. Most of the people there. Yeah,
everyone sort of knew their roles pretty well, and everything sort of just, even when I was really crook, the places were still running and running reasonably well because everyone just had their game plan that they played, and we got the reports that. We still did the reports and everything to monitor everything. Tick, 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 cross, and away we go.
So you had a flourishing practice with happy patients, a happy team, as noted.
Happy wife, happy life. Come on. That's what we're talking about here.
We had a happy team who you can tell they'd been with us when we sold the practices. A lot of them had been there for coming up to 10 years or over 10 years. Everyone just knew their role. It was nice for us to go to work to practice dentistry. I wanted to share our story because it's a very personal story, but it's a story that I've lived through. I know what it's like. I wanted to showcase what Ross had to say as a practitioner in systemising things and to show you that, yes, it can be hard at the beginning. But overall, it is a game changer and it is better for you in the long run. Our growth was significant when we had that in as well. It sort of went from, here, you can't see because we're on a podcast, but it went from low to high. And so that was good too. Thank you so much, Ross.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Treasure.
For joining us today. And we will have show notes, but it will not have any details of Ross's socials as he doesn't have any. It won't have a website as he doesn't have any. Right. He lives the life of Riley. He is a windsurfer and he is a dog lover and dog owner. In fact, he's just at our feet here. I thought he's very unhappy he hasn't been for his walk, so we will let Ross and little Ernie, our dog, go for a walk. Thank you, Ross.
Thank you, Michelle.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast or YouTube channel. Your support helps us keep bringing you valuable insights from leaders in the dental industry. Next time on Dental Success Beyond Chairside, I'll be joined by Justine Kirk, founder and CEO of ISO Matters. Justine has spent her career helping businesses put the right systems in place to create smoother, more efficient workflows. She'll be sharing how simple but effective systems can take the stress out of running a dental practice, so you and your team can focus on what matters most, your patients. I'm really looking forward to this chat and I hope you'll get a lot from it too. Thanks for listening and I'll see you next time.